In the pantheon of adult film history, there are countless stars who shone brightly and then faded into obscurity, and then some exploded past the medium altogether, carving lasting legacies beyond what they achieved on screen. Annie Sprinkle, born Ellen F. Steinberg in Philadelphia in 1954, belongs firmly in the latter. Adult film legend, performance artist, sex educator, activist, ecosexual, it's hard to pin down Sprinkle's career without acknowledging that she never really stayed inside a single frame. But before the accolades, the academic titles, and the eco-weddings to mountains and rivers, Annie Sprinkle was a young performer, figuring out her voice and her role during the heady days of the Golden Age. Today, we are going to have an in-depth look at all of that. Sprinkle's story doesn't begin with the bright lights of Times Square marquees, but in a peripatetic childhood that took her from Philadelphia to Panama, where she attended high school. A shy and inhibited child into her teenage years, she has described her Jewish upbringing as intellectually steeped, with both her parents working as educators and academics. However, at the age of 18, she moved to New York City. By the early 1970s, it had become ground zero for the adult film boom. Working odd jobs, she ended up as a cashier at an adult theater. Depending on the source, the story differs here. Some accounts suggest that while employed during the showing of Deep Throat, she was briefly involved as a witness in the film's obscenity case. This brought her into the orbit of Gerard Damiano, who then provided her a route into the industry. The other version is a little less dramatic. It was through watching the reels flicker across the screen night after night that she got curious. Why not step into the frame herself? Either story fits neatly into Sprinkle's mythos, the shy suburban girl whose life veered suddenly into the world of adult cinema. What is known, however, is that by 1974, while based in Manhattan, Sprinkle had entered the industry across its various forms, dancing, escorting, and experimenting with roles behind and in front of the camera. It was a crash course of sorts that would set the tone for the next 2 decades of her life. Her first appearance in a feature-length film is often traced back to Satan Was a Lady in 1975, a rare genre entry from cult director Doris Wishman. Billed under the alias Annie Sands, Sprinkle was just one of several performers within the narrative, but the credit stands as her gateway into features. That same year, she also appeared in The American Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, a parody loosely riffing on Arthur Conan Doyle's famous detective. The film, directed by Ralph L., featured Sprinkle in a small, uncredited role as a flight stewardess. From there, Sprinkle began building a prolific resume, quickly developing a reputation as a performer who brought more than just looks to the screen. Unlike the ingenue archetypes that dominated the era, Sprinkle radiated wit and intelligence, often playing up her bawdy humor in scenes that might have otherwise been forgettable. And by 1980, she was appearing in some of the era's most ambitious productions. Take Gerard Damiano's Satisfiers of Alpha Blue, a futuristic, sci-fi-tinged exploration of fantasy and technology, which I reviewed recently and considered to be a classic. Sprinkle turns up in a small role, but her scene is electric and certainly sticks in the mind. The following year, she joined Damiano again for Pandora's Mirror, which combined eroticism with psychological drama in the story of a woman's supernatural-based sexual awakening. These films showcased the industry's last push for narrative and cinematic ambition at the dawn of the video era, and Sprinkle's involvement placed her squarely within that creative vanguard. Deep Inside Annie Sprinkle is arguably one of her best-known films during this stage of her career. By putting her name in the title, she positioned herself as both subject and star. Also, taking on the role of writer and director, The film blended excellent genre content with a hint of autobiography, foreshadowing the self-aware, meta approach she would later develop in her performance art. During this time, she was also part of Club 90, a pioneering support group of women performers who met regularly to share experiences and foster solidarity in a business that rarely offered protection. By the mid-1980s, the industry was changing. Videotape had replaced big-budget features, and the wider AIDS crisis cast a shadow over adult sets. Sprinkle began to distance herself from traditional film work, but rather than disavow her past, she repurposed it. And one of her key transitional projects was Annie Sprinkle's History of Porn, a hybrid work that mixed autobiography, archival clips, and tongue-in-cheek commentary. Instead of simply being a performer, Sprinkle became curator of her own narrative. Her most famous stage project, Post-Porn Modernist during the mid-90s, took this even further. A theatrical collage of stories, sex, and satire, it blurred the line between lecture and striptease, education and art. She continued to experiment through the 90s and 2000s with projects that merged documentary, education, and eroticism. Titles like Annie Sprinkle's Amazing World of Orgasm and her appearance in the documentary The Naked Feminist in 2004 cemented her role as a sex-positive educator and cultural critic as much as a performer. By 1996, Sprinkle had a Ph.D. in Human Sexuality, a milestone that symbolically closed her chapter as a traditional adult star and opened a new one as a sexologist. Later collaborations with her partner Beth Stevens, including their pioneering work in Ecosexuality, pushed her legacy even further into the realm of performance activism. Essentially, Sprinkle's later works never rejected her film past, they built on it. Whether inviting audiences to be part of the narrative or marrying the earth in a meadow, she treated sexuality as art, politics, and autobiography all at once, a continuation of the same bold impulse that led her into genre films in the first place. From Satan Was a Lady to Deep Inside Annie Sprinkle, from early loops to eco-weddings, her work insists on collapsing the walls between pornography, art, and life. Sprinkle wasn't just a star of the golden age, she turned the medium into autobiography, into spectacle, and finally into a creative body of work that has more than ensured her lasting legacy.